Issues of financial management, if you are married, is a major issue. And although we need to come another day and talk about not now personal financial management, but family financial management, I think it will be important to ask yourself, do we do this with my wife? Then go and say, I attended a seminar, these were the things said. We have never planned for outing. I hear it's a very important item in the budget. Can we actually put some money for going out? Then they say, since we don't have a lot of money, we'll be going once every year. But somebody else goes every week. Another one goes, but say somewhere, you have now gained it, isn't it? Yeah. So you don't put the akakota wakini. You don't do it like you are friends. It's your budget is personal, isn't it? That's why I feared when he started giving us percentages, because your percentage may not be mine, your priorities are not mine. The most important person in this issue is your wife. The two of you must be congruent. You must agree what are the items that must be put and how. However, I want to very quickly mention that the items that for a Christian, the Bible says you must get involved in. And so you need to actually plan for them. Very important. By the way, I wanted to read Luke chapter 14, just to understand that budgeting is not optional. Just look at chapter 14, Luke 14. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first of all sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? What does Jesus say? You are a fool if you don't budget. In fact, he goes on to say, people ridicule him. This fellow began to build and was not able to finish. Now, in other words, a lot of people make it look like it's a Christian to just go for without a plan, without a budget. No. Jesus made us stop and say, and see, if you use the red letter edition, it's Jesus himself talking. He's saying, no. If you want to do a project, don't start it until you budget it. So if you want to tell me how much you'll be, before beginning of March, you must budget. And I can give you 4 reasons why budgeting is important. Number 1, when you don't budget, the agent dictates what you spend. And some things that are urgent are not important. You know, like your aunt comes and you start killing a goat. Now, if you kill it, that goat that was going to pay school fees. Your aunt is not as important as school fees. Would you agree with me? Yes. So if you have a budget and you have put some money for hospitality, your aunt must fit in that budget, isn't it? So you have thought about it and you have accommodated the person there. So the first problem of not budgeting is the agent dictates how you spend. Number 2, your emotions dictate how you spend. Somebody comes to the office and they have just a wonderful suit from Dubai. And you just picture yourself as you are preaching and you say, wow, even the congregation will admire this. So how much is it? 10,000. You have not thought through your budget. As you remember, there's 10,000 in the account. You buy it, isn't it? Or later to realize there's no milk. Now, between milk and a suit, we were told by one of the groups, milk is more important, isn't it? Yeah. So can you see the danger of not having a budget? And whether you like it or not, you are going to end up where your emotions. It's called impulse buying. That's the term they normally use. Impulse buying is when you feel like buying. And all of us have impulse. What stops us is the budget. Because you feel like buying, then remember it's not in the budget. So it's gone. Number 3, which you need to understand, without a budget, you have invited marital quarrels. Because you are able to buy something, you say, how could you buy that? No, you never said you should not buy. You are quarreling at the wrong time, isn't it? But if the two of you had sat and agreed what are priorities, would that quarrel be there in the house? Now, the good thing about budgeting is that it's a quarreling time. Because when you are budgeting, man says, "Hey, doesn't say you quarrel, but you are quarreling over nothing." Because there's nothing. You are talking about the future, isn't it? So it's not an issue. But if you quarrel already money out of the account, can you see the crisis? So it's better to upfront discuss the issues. Then that way, when you come to the whole month, you not quarrel again. Because you already quarreled at the beginning. Okay, I'm using the wrong word. It's not quarrel, discuss at the beginning to budget. Because there's no other way of budgeting other than debating it with your wife. So it's important to understand. So why do we need to budget? As a way of creating harmony in the house. And your children also are the same. Once they know what the budget is, they know what not to ask. Because they know it's not part of the budget. It's not a priority this year. And I think it's important. Anyway, I have to finish. I just want to put for you the style of budgeting. Look at verse 28. Just hear what the Bible is saying. Before you budget, the first thing is to assess the need. And that's what I asked. We didn't do that in the group report. But it says, why is that need there? You know, if you look at verse 18, he says, don't you first assess the need? Is it a want or is it a need? Is the tower really a need? And for what? That's part of budgeting. Because how will you know what's a priority without that debate? You know, the other day I saw my coat has a hole. I can't appear that before congregation with a hole again. So a suit becomes a priority, isn't it? But sometimes you just want to have, all my suits are red. I want a green one. Is that priority? Is that a priority? No. Can you see that's the first thing in budgeting? Agreeing, debating in terms of assessing, is it really a need? I think the other thing I'm seeing in verse 28 is assessing the cost. Once you agree it's a need, what's the cost? And somebody told us, even the cost is variable. You can actually buy sugar from a gunia and sugar from a packet. I didn't know that. Because I no longer have a big family. It's my wife and I. Maybe the gunia will take us forever. Yeah. And anyway, the two of us don't take sugar, so. But we always keep sugar for visitors, so don't fail to come. But it's important to understand what you are saying. When it comes to the cost, is we need transport, which is the most effective and cheapest way of doing that. That's the second item. In other words, the need has been established, but how to meet the need has variables, isn't it? So find out how can you meet that need at a level of income you can afford. That's very important. Number 3, turn to the other side. And most of your budget didn't have it. What are my sources of income? They should be in the part of the budget. I'm going to get, my wife will get 30,000, I'll get 70,000, so we have 100,000 shillings this month to deal with. Oh, in addition to that, the cow at home, he has given birth. So we are now getting milk every month. You add to that. You must, it's not called a budget. This accountant called Pastor Arui will tell you. It's not called a budget until it balances. Am I right? A list of expenses is not a budget. It's the income and expenditure must balance. Don't say you have a budget before you check whether the two are balanced. And I think that's very important. Assess the resources. Then finally, now determine to adjust the budget until the income and expenditure are in line. I want to give you 7 areas that must be budgeted according to the Bible. The first one is the tithe. Some people put it, some people didn't put it, and even those who put it was not a priority. It was not at the top. It needs to be at the top. Why? Because God owns everything. Did you say that at the beginning? So the way to prove you believe He is the owner is to give Him back. One of the trouble is the money you have 100,000 can't even pay for the school fees. It's not enough. So what do? Do you still give when the money is not enough? What do? When your income is less than your requirements for money, do you tithe or not? You are keeping quiet. You would be very foolish to fail to tithe when you know even if you don't tithe, the money is still not enough. To tithe is to tell God, even before I tithe, it was not enough. I believe you are the source of my income. I'm giving 100,000 is not enough because the school fees is 120. I'll give 10 and remain with the 90. And just like 100 was not enough, you 90 is not. I'm waiting on you to see what you will do. I'm not communicating. How do you refuse to give him and expect him to be the one to help you? Can you see the spiritual issue? So it means that you need to budget upfront the giving. And I'm not suggesting whether there's a tithe, the 20, that's between you and God. But giving is a spiritual issue. And it's more important than any other issue. Because lack of giving may start making you think you're on your own. Giving makes you remember you're in God's hands. Are we together? And because you never have enough money, it's very wise to always be on the right side with God. And you are not bribing God by giving a tithe. You are reminding him you are dependent on him. And because giving is so painful, you have to sort out your faith issue, isn't it? So by giving, you're going to say, let me be honest. Only God can meet my needs. That's what you are giving. And I think that's very, very important. Deuteronomy 14:22 says, be sure to set aside a tenth of all that your fields produce each year. And eat the tithe of your grain, new wine and oil, and the firstborn of your fields, herds and flocks, in the presence of the Lord your God, at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name, so that you may learn to revere the Lord your God always. Why are you tithing? So that you may learn to revere the Lord God always. However, there is now a complication that what do you do? Does the church do with the tithe? Because here, it means part of the tithe needs to be eaten by the church members. Now, that's a subject for another day. We leave that to the pastors. Are we together? Yeah, but you as an individual, you need to give back to God's work. So that, please don't allow that to ever be out of your budget. 1 Corinthians 9 verse 12 says, if others have this right of support from you, should we have it all the more? But we did not use the right. On the contrary, we put up with anything rather than hinder the gospel of Christ. In other words, part of the tithe is used to support God's work. For people who need the money because they spend all their time in church, how do you expect them to eat? The Bible is suggesting it's we who are working who should budget support them. Are we together? And we can go on and on. Anyway, I don't have enough time. Number 2, budget to give to the government. None of you talk about that. Look at Romans 13 verse 6. This is also why you pay taxes. For the authorities are God's servants. Are you hearing? Ruto is God's servant. Some of you don't know what that is. You know, many of us who are engineers are not listed, but the government is. Is God's servant who give their full time to governing. Matthew, anyway, we could go on. I think the notes will be sent to you, so that what I'm leaving out, you can look through the notes. But you can see, according to Jesus, it's obvious. You must pay taxes. So you need to find a way. You know, like recently they made somebody that paid us. If you own a house, they don't wait for you to finish the year. They want you monthly. Every time you are paid rent 1,000, you send 100 to them. Have you had it? Yeah, they are carrying. But if you don't, you are a thief. Your budget must include, when you are budgeting the money, remember the resource side, you must ensure to have removed what is taxing. So remember, we are talking about things that are upfront. You don't tax later, you tax upfront. That's what paying does. So even if you are a businessman, You must throughout the year set up the money. Don't wait until KRA is following you. You should not have been eating the KRA money. You should have been putting it aside. Don't budget it as income. Net profit is above tax. Am I going to get it? You can do the net profit you can budget for. Don't budget money before you have removed. I'm not talking your business. So it's critical, very, very important. By the way, that's a very important issue because I've had some pastors telling businessmen when they take a loan, they die. They say, you won't be a thief. The word of God is very clear. The harvest must be, did you read with you? It comes out of the harvest, not out of the seed. In other words, plant, it grows, you take a harvest, and a tithe is out of there. And a loan to begin a business is that a harvest or a tithe, a seed. So how can, unless you are here and people of a pastor, how would you allow any church member to give you money out of three problems? Number one is a seed. Number two, he's a liar. When he talked to the bank, he did not include the pastor in the figures. He said, give me money to begin a shop. Then they calculated because the shop will be able to pay a loan. Then you come behind the bank's behind the back of the bank, you start giving to the church. Are you not a thief? Because you see, you end up being unable to pay the loan to the bank. But the real problem is because you used it, and I told you my first job was in a bank. And I can tell you, one of the biggest problems of people who take loans is using it outside the original agreement. And the charge is outside. So if he invests in the business will make money tied out of the net income. Are we together? Anyway, but the important thing I wanted you to understand is that every Christian is required by the scriptures to budget to ensure he is not a parasite. You just come with the road, and I can see they are struggling to make it good. They are using money, isn't it? So if you are not paying anything to the, which council are you in, Nairobi or Nairobi? If you are not paying anything to the county council of Nairobi, you are a parasite. Because somebody is paying, you are just enjoying. What is your other title? Mr. Parasite. You pay tax, you should pay very, very clear. Without any problem. So when someone will start and say, you can do it, let me advise you. Yeah, I say, I intend to go to heaven. Your advice will take me to hell. I have no intention of following your advice. So don't cut corners. That's a part of what I cover in my book on integrity. So budget clearly to ensure that, however, this accountant will tell you there's a difference between avoiding tax and evading tax. One is legal, the other one is illegal. Which one is legal? Avoiding is legal. Evading is illegal. Evading is illegal. Yes. But what is to avoid? Is to reorganize your business so that you don't pay as much. Are we together? Without misrepresenting. Yeah, you are telling the truth. But for example, if you do not have a pension scheme, they have already arranged that pension money will be tax deductible. Am I going to get it? So, if you have not pension scheme, you are waiting to run your business, you have to pay tax on it. But if you have a pension scheme, it will be tax deductible. Am I going to get it? That's what we are talking about. So it's okay to avoid tax, but not to evade. Anyway, I am already taking longer than I should. Hey, I've only 5 minutes. So, item number 3 on your budget. I'm calling it self-consumption. You know, we read earlier about the things God is going to do for you. So he has promised. He'll give you clothes. He'll give you all those are self-consumption. Unfortunately, some of us are so interested in getting rich. We are living like paupers because there's no budget for income. You find somebody dressing so badly and he has a lot of money in the bank account. No. The scriptures expect you to meet your consumption. Are we together? If you can afford to take your wife out once a week, budget it. And it's biblical. Are we together? And it's, anyway, I wish you get them. You know, God gives the resources for you and your immediate family to enjoy. And it's important. Now, in economics, there's something they call MPC, marginal propensity to consume. Some of you, your MPC is zero. If you get extra money, you just continue living like you never got the extra money. You don't have a desire to spend. You say that to me. You have been earning 100,000, I will give you 100, 220, you just live there, you never improve. Your MPC is zero. Of course, Amara's MPC is 1. Every money they increase, they increase. Now, on this particular subject, you must budget to meet your needs. And remember, you are listed very well, isn't it? I'm not going to go to those details. Please go to all that list of items that are required for your survival to be on your budget, because it's a biblical thing. That's why God is giving you money. Your wife must be able to dress well. Dress well does not mean expensively. In the compa, you can get a nice dress. Take it to a dry cleaner. Nobody knows anybody had ever used it before. And even if you buy it from London straight, about 20 times the price. After you have washed it, they all do the same. Anyway, I may not agree with you. But the other thing is, find a way of meeting the needs of your family, but not expensively. Are we together? Yes. But you must budget for it. Remember, you dealt with the government, you dealt with the tithe. The first thing is not saving. The first thing is consumption. Items that have to do with your needs. They have been listed by the groups very well. Number 4, once you have gone through your list of budget items that are requirements, you will not like me for this. You must think about the extended family. You know, 1 Timothy 5:7-8 says, if anyone does not provide for his relatives, especially for immediate family, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Have you read the Bible that says that if there's a widow in the church, before the church can help the widow, he should be helped by the children, the grandchildren. If there are children or grandchildren alive, the Bible says let them look after them, isn't it? So in your budget, there needs to be some money for your extended family. For your brother to fail to go to school, after all, it's not my son. There's a problem. How would you do this verse? If anyone does not provide for his relatives, but especially, don't provide for your relatives, you provide for your immediate family. Are we together? Can you see how clear the Bible is? But after the immediate family, is there no money now for the extended family? Budgeting. And it helps. I told my girlfriend before we married, I'm already paying the school fees. Either we delay the wedding until I finish it, or you come and join me in paying it. So that's why to be frank, isn't it? Yes. And we agreed. It is in our interest, John and Rebecca, to support them, because we don't support them, we support them forever. But if you pay their school fees, they'll be able to get their own jobs. And we now can join together to help our parents. Can you see, even for selfish reasons, help your brothers. Are we together? Yeah. Not permanently, but temporarily. And you will become adults. Once they are adults, that's their choices. You can't run another man. We are not talking about relatives. We are not talking about relatives who are adults. We are talking about adults who are not yet adults. Because you can't run another man. So it's important. And the same thing with elderly parents. Because some of them did not have a pension. You are their pension, isn't it? And now they are married to it. And you come to a Christian. In fact, the Bible says you are one son. I don't know anybody if you are an unbeliever. But don't ask me, ask the Bible. For your parents to not get any help, and you are budgeting, and you are not putting any money aside, and for your parents, they don't have the dresses, they just food. Sure, how much is food? Assuming they have a house, all you need is to give them enough money to ensure the food and the shelter is already there. It's there the food. I'm trying to think what else is there other than food. Because you see, they have no children to educate. Am I right? However, having said that, let's come out clear. You should not budget for your children to be your pension. Those are forgiven. The Bible says, days of ignorance, God, but now you are not ignorant. And if you are not ignorant, Pastor Aaron has done wrong. He brought you here. You no longer be ignorant. You must budget for your pension. Inside your budget, there must be something called pension. And pension, if you are employed as a pension, now they are private pension schemes. If you go to Jubilee or go to Britain, ask them to arrange a private pension scheme for yourself. Are you together? And if you are too late, you can find something called annuity. What's annuity? It's for somebody who is old and never arranged a pension. He can sell his plot or sell his house. Go to them and ask, if I wanted you to pay me 100,000 per month until I die, how much do you need now so that you pay me like that until I die? Those are called annuities. And they have come to, they are very, very clever people who calculate. Of course, you have to imagine when you die. But once they have settled, when they have settled when you die, they tell you, if you really want me to be paying 100,000 shillings every month until you die, I want you to give me 3 million shillings. You sell the house, you give them 3 million, and you are assured as an old person not to disturb your relatives. Because your 100,000 can be to a house, isn't it? Are we together? Yes. You know, what will I leave my children with? They also can work. Are we together? Yes. The important thing is when you are old, don't depend on them. If you stop to depend on them, they'll be able to save for themselves. Are we together? So it's important that, and you know the trouble with those things is that the earlier you start, the better. There's a that thing I've never understood, accountant no better, called complex interest. That if I put at the age of 25, I start sending 1,000 shillings to that scheme. By the age of 60, you will be able to pay me 70,000, 80,000 shillings per month until I die. Because of what is it? Complex interest? Interest, oh no, not compound. It's called compound. Compound interest. It is interest on interest on interest on interest. So what I put in when I was 25, by the time I'm 60, it has been done, until it's like a miracle. You can't tell how the 1,000 has become millions enough to. That is what you are failing to have by not starting to say as young as possible. Anyway, we have run out of time. So, but I'm saying you must put money for those. You haven't heard me. You must also put money for the needy. You know, we put money only for after what I talked about. But the Americans are giving money to World Vision. They are giving money to Compassion. And you get the impression these are rich. I was in Canada, must be 98, and I was in my room when I started seeing World Vision advertising. And they were asking for $2. That's when I realized the people who support our children are not rich people. They give $5, $20. But we have no way of supporting the needy. We support our immediate ones, we have no money for the needy. It's important to find, either as a church or as a people, how to help the needy and to budget money for it. Now we come to item number 6. You must budget to save. Somebody already dealt with that. You know, just so that you understand, it's not voluntary. It is comparing Proverbs 6 verse 6. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it is taught its provisions in summer and gathers its food and harvest. So during winter, they still have something to eat. Are we together? That's what you're saying. They're saying you must be having a smaller brain than that of an ant. To be having an NPC of one. Where you spend everything you get. And you know, We do not save, the major. It needs to be upfront. In other words, I know I can buy a car at this, but before I consider to buy the car, why don't I first of all save? Then what it means, it what makes you know whether to buy a car or not. Because saving is critical. Am I communicating? And you know the good thing is, we're not talking about how much you save. You save the principle. You can decide, I'll be saving 5%. That means your mind already feel how many 100,000, 5,000 is not mine. So you don't even think about it, it's not your money. If you find a way of having a starting order, you know what a starting order is? It should be removed before you even get them and sent to somewhere where you are saving. And that will be an important issue. However, finally, saving is not enough because most of the saving are liquid enough to be tempted to take. So you need to move it from saving to investment. The difference between saving and investment is the saving, you still can go back on it. Investment is that. Like if you buy a house, if somebody tells you he borrows some money from you and tells you he's buying some protein in Zindika, you can forget your money. Because even if you want to, on his balance and tell you, I'll sell my land. 2 years later, they still be selling. Am I right? So you need to understand, you need an investment is something to give you long-term return, of which has no immediate liquidity. Am I communicating? Why is investment important? Because it increases your stream of incomes in the longer term. You may be earning the same salary every month. If he saves and then invest, and you don't, within 10 years, you'll still be earning the same, but his stream of investment will be sending him another 100,000. So yes, what's wrong? How did he do that? He must be living outside his means. No. It's a saving that has turned into a stream of income. Oh, you get that? And it's important you actually do that. I'm already beyond my time. But am I communicating? Yes. Now, with the permission of Pastor, we have 10 minutes for discussion. In other words, discussion doesn't mean you ask me questions. It means we talk. So you are allowed to say, Brother Nganga, some of those things you are saying were true in 1970s. No, they are not true now. And also be educated in the process. So it doesn't have to be just a question. It can be a comment. It can also be a question. It's not clear what I was saying.